think when you go to an art gallery when you're really young, it can really shape your whole understanding of the world of art. Hello, I'm Rob Biddulph. I'm a children's author and illustrator. You might know my Draw with Rob videos. And I'm here at the National Portrait Gallery with my National Art Pass. Well, the first time I can remember visiting an art gallery, I'd probably been before, but I do remember going when I just started my A-levels. I was studying A-level art, and I went with my mum to the Barbican to see a Stanley Spencer exhibition called The Apotheosis of Love, and I still have the catalogue now. And I just remember his extraordinary self-portraits. I think that's what really spoke to me, his self-portraits and his use of colour, and it really informed the work that I did for my A-level. You know, you look at the skin tones in his self-portraits, it's just not, I think up until that point I would, get pink and maybe a bit of yellow here and there and some highlights, but actually there's greens and there's blues, and it really kind of opened my eyes to kind of the use of colour in paintings. I think when you go to an art gallery when you're really young, it can really shape your whole understanding of the world of art, and not only your understanding of other people's paintings, but the work that you produce too. So I really, that's a real strong kind of formative memory that I have. There's a painting just around the corner in the National Gallery by Henri Rousseau called Tiger in a Tropical Storm. It's actually one of those paintings that's got two titles. It's called Tiger in a Tropical Storm, but it's also known as Surprise. And it's this picture of this kind of jungle scene, and hidden in the jungle scene is a tiger. And I think that's why it's called Surprise, because it's really kind of camouflaged. But I remember I went when I was kind of in my teens, and I was just blown away again by the kind of the detail in that painting and the different leaf textures and the colour. And it had a very illustrative quality too, so it really appealed to me when I was younger. So much so that when I wrote my first book, which is called Blown Away, there's a double-page spread in that of a kind of jungle scene. And I was directly influenced by that Rousseau painting, the leaf textures and the pattern and that kind of thing. This was, 20, 30 years later, and it really stuck with me. And I think that's a very important thing about going to an art gallery. It kind of replenishes your own energy for your artwork. And you're constantly picking up influence and kind of inspiration from other people's work. And certainly that Rousseau painting is kind of right at the forefront of my mind when I think about my experience in art galleries. I like going with other people, really. Certainly with my children, we take them to a lot of art galleries. Whenever we go on holiday, we always find, a gallery in the city or the country that we're in, and we take them. And I like to get their perspective on paintings, particularly paintings that I know quite well. It's always nice to get kind of a fresh perspective from somebody else who's seeing it for the first time. And as I said, I went with my parents when I was younger too, and my mum would teach me a lot about the paintings. And it's fun, and lots of galleries have art trails and worksheets and things for kids to do when you're going around the gallery, which is great. My kids love doing that, like little treasure hunts almost. And I think that's a really good way of getting kids interested in art. I think it's quite a sociable kind of experience going to an art gallery. That being said, of course, I've been to plenty on my own as well, and that's still a lovely thing to do. But I do like sharing the experience. I lead a really busy life. If I'm not writing books, I'm illustrating books, or if I'm not doing either of those things, I'm off on tour, promoting books. And regularly I need to kind of decompress. And there's no better way of decompressing for me than going to an art gallery, having a bit of peace and quiet to walk around and look at some amazingly inspirational works of art. You sort of need to replenish those kind of creative juices on a regular basis. So I'm going to use my art pass to make regular visits, at least kind of monthly visits to an art gallery, spend a morning or an afternoon at a gallery. It just recharges my batteries, my creative batteries, and I really love it. Time away from screens is really important. We spend so much of our life looking at screens, and so to actually look at like these kind of huge canvases and these rooms full of amazing masterpieces and works of art, I think is a real antidote to kind of the hustle and the bustle of modern day life, particularly my life, while at the same time helping me to create my work in the future.